Hello everyone! So for this week's journal, I'm going to talk about the differences I've noticed in how men and women handle conflict and how that connects to what we've read in chapter 14 and a little bit of chapter 15. So from my own experience, when girls have a conflict, it usually is handled through gossip, talking it out, or maybe even exchanging a few aggressive words, either through text or in person. But it almost never really turns out physical. I've never gotten violent with my friends personally, and they've never gotten violent with me when dealing with conflict. But with guys, it seems to be the opposite. They'll usually fight it out, size each other up, and then somehow end up being friends 2 seconds later, like nothing ever happened. So I actually found a quote in chapter 14, and it's under the title Differences in Conflict Handling Behavior, Traditional Expectations. And it supports what I've experienced and noticed, and it said, conflict between boys tend to be short-lived, but characterized by physical and verbal aggressiveness. When faced with similar conflict, girls engaged in sustained negotiations with each other. Thus, boys have fights and girls do whatever they can to avoid fighting. I think this is pretty accurate. Personally, I try to stay calm and I try to communicate well instead of reacting right away. I like to listen first and then explain how I feel. I'm not really the most confrontational person, so it helps me to resolve things peacefully. And sometimes I will admit I will let the conflict sit for a while because I'm just too nervous to kind of fix the problem, which doesn't really help either. So while I was reading chapter 15, I found another quote that I also found to be interesting, and it stated that many men in the United States today feel betrayed by society. Men believe that they can no longer count on a company's loyalty, that being breadwinners is no longer enough for them to be perceived as good men, and that their work no longer fulfills them. So when I read that, it made me think about my own silent question. And for me, it would be, am I living the way that is true to myself, or am I just living the way others expect me to live? So moving on to my progress this week, for my individual work, I think I'm doing pretty good with staying on track. I've completed the discussion and now I'm doing the journal, and then after this I will be completing the learning check. And then as for our group project, me and Autumn plan on working on it either tonight or tomorrow, so we'll make sure to get as much done as possible. Thank you so much for listening.